Hotepu Gatekeepers. Today I wish to address a very simple and direct theme. And to do that, let's start by you thinking of, in your own mind, something in your life that's not working, something bothering you. Take a minute, pause the video, and write down the 3 top things in your life that you find simply are dissatisfying and that you wish didn't exist in your life or that you could do differently. So do take a minute, pause this, and come right back. So, welcome back. What you just wrote down or thought about were things that are happening in your life that you don't like due to lack of initiation, lack of a rites of passage. The white culture does not provide an official rites of passage for any of its youth, or any of its adults, or any of its elders. As they always say, there is no manual on how to raise a child or how to be in a relationship. I wish someone wrote a book about this. Well, it is true that in Western cultures, there is no institutionalized system to guide its citizens towards an enlightened way of handling life's challenges, handling the list of things you just wrote down. So we can't, at this stage, blame you personally, because it's not your job to create the social institutions, the educational systems, to make sure you knew how to run your own spirit, run your own brain. And this is the benefit of turning towards Africa, turning towards our roots, because the African ancestors did make institutionally required rites of passage. Now, what's a rites of passage? It's basically a set of procedures and rituals designed to enlighten you on how to go through various stages of life, from being a child to an adult to an elder to an ancestor in the afterlife. Those were the 4 major stations of the rites of passage. Well, the first rites of passage was birth, the proper way of birthing someone, which should not be horizontal. Children should be birthed vertically, and allowing the Geb, or the gravitational force of the earth, to pull you down. And when I say the birthing process, that also includes the pre-uterine life, where there was a whole initiation for the parents before conception, and during carriage in the womb, that gave that child, or projected into that child, both into the sperm and egg of the parents and into the womb, certain energies and thoughts and images to help initiate that child into their life on earth. So the first initiation really was the arranged marriage ceremonies of the parents, their rites of passage, and the mysteries of life in the womb, and how the mothers were trained to commune with their womb and commune with the child growing in that womb through its various stages of growth intrauterine. Then you had your rites of passage of birth, which was a very big ceremony. In fact, if you look at the walls of the temple of Dendera, which is the great zodiac temple, the entry walls show the birth of a king. It's very elaborate. It's a very elaborate ceremony. And so the birthing process and the first few days after birth were rich in initiatic ceremony, where the child's destiny was read, the parents were aware of this, the name was given, the spiritual name or mission of this child was given, and it was a big fanfare. All that's been lost. Basically, you have a baby shower, which is a very anemic, watered-down version of a high ritual. So then, once you were born, and you've received your naming ritual and your birthing ritual, and you're presented to the community as the returning ancestor so and so, whose divine mission on earth is such and such, and the community agrees to vow to support you to live up to the virtues of your name, which is your mission on earth, to the calling that you have been given by the gay local priests and shamans who did these readings for children, who were pivotal at the intrauterine phase for the mothers. And so all of this began your life. So imagine if all of you listening had such a splendid ritual beginning where the community gathered to focalize intense spiritual forces on your well-being even before you're born, while you're in the womb, and at the first few days of your life on this earth. All of that has been lost. All that was lost during the terrorism that they call the slave trade, and we lost our culture. But I want to cover today mostly, and I will perhaps one day do a video on the intrauterine initiations and that phase of your life. It's also called your prenatal astrology chart. And it's a chart that's erected during the time of insemination, where we have the basic idea when your mother became fertile with you, and there was a chart. And that chart was used in ancient Kemet to initiate the child in the womb towards divinity, towards enlightenment. And that was required. It was required protocols for being a mother and being a father. The father was also to be involved in assisting her in that rite of passage. But today I wish to cover more after you're born and the major grand arc of life crossroads, or life of passage, rites of passage. And they were, as I mentioned, they were the child phase, the young adult phase, the adult phase, the elder phase, and the afterlife phase. Now, in order for you to have a rites of passage, in order for gay men, all of you who wrote down those lists of things that you wish were different in your life, those are all issues that you have as a result of not having the technology and education on how to manage the different aspects of your spirit. A rites of passage is a tunnel, it's a passageway between strata of your spirit, layers of your spirit, from low levels to your highest level. Within all humans are the most vicious beasts and the most noble of deities, of the divine. You have that whole range, that whole arc within you. And you start as a child, the inner child. And you have the mind of a child, the ways of a child. You don't have strong reasoning yet. Your brain's not developed, so you work out of emotions and whining and fits and pleasure and laughter and giggles. You respond in a childish way, which is appropriate for a child. But at around the age of 12, which is what's called your first Ma'a or Tehuti Ma'a return, your first Jupiter return in your astrology chart, which happens every 12 years of your life, 12, 24, etc., 36 years old. At 12 years old, you had what's called your first Jupiter return, which marked the beginning of you being ready for rites of passage from a boy into a man. But the trick is, the boy, the inner child, will not leave on his own. He must be forced to leave and to allow the inner adult to come to the ascendancy. This is a very important point. Your inner child, your childish ways, will not go away from your adult life all by itself. It must have ritual. It must have initiatic ritual to sever its influence from spilling into your adult life, so your silly, childish ways don't spill into your adult life, where you're what we call a man child. You still have the ways of your childishness when you are a grown man. This is not natural. So we had these rites of passage to say, now you have enjoyed being a child, that's over. Now it's time to become a man. And you were given all kinds of trials and tests, and you were circumcised at that age where you're able to feel it. But you weren't allowed to scream or yell. You were given trials in the deserts, trials in the temples, and you couldn't cry, you couldn't whine, you had to control the emotions because the inner child is very emotional. Wah, goo goo gaga, they're always emotional. And an adult is able to perform what he has to do, his duties, whether or not he emotionally feels like doing so or not. That's called a grown person. That's called an adult. But many of you, not due to your own fault, we blame the Western system. The white people system does not have these institutions as a requirement. So you're stuck. So you keep dragging your childhood issues, your traumas, your scars, your wounds into your adult relationships, your adult friendships, your adult lovers, your adult job, your adult way of eating, where you want to eat because it tastes good, not because it's nutritionally sound. So this is the overall meaning of rites of passage. So I want you all to realize you've been shortchanged. The white culture has left you hanging. And many of you have that list you wrote and are going through things with yourself, with your health, with your lovers, with your friends, with your careers. You're going through these issues. But the first finger should be pointed at the failure of the white system, which is not initiatic. Don't blame yourself first. Don't blame your lover first. Don't blame your parents first. Blame the failed white social system that has left you all hanging. But do not despair. There is hope. There is Africa. There is ancient Kemet. There are the ways of the gatekeepers, the gay shamans. And to be a shaman, you must absolutely go through initiation or rites of passage. And on the screen here, you see some of the details and the methods as well as agenda of rites of passage. So you see in this beautiful zodiac wheel here the 12 signs going from this 9 o'clock position backwards. This is one of the Gestalt mandalas of ancient Africa, of Kemet. The gay shamans use this mandala, this map, as the map of maps. Every other map of spirituality, physics, science, sociology, economics, every part of life fits in this one wheel. It was the gay shamans of Kemet's great stroke of genius to create this structure. And if you think it's easy, go outside at night, look at the stars, see the dots, connect them, and call that the ram and this is the bull, and then all the meanings and correlates, and you'll see it's not an easy task whatsoever. It's an act of non-human genius to have designed this mandala, the zodiac wheel. And so we divide the zodiac wheel into fours, into quartets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first quartet. Then 1, 2, 3, 4 is the second quartet. And the third quartet is here at Sagittarius. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have three quartets. Okay? Now, these three quartets correspond to the three major rites of passage that we all go through as humans while alive on Earth. The fourth quartet, what we call the rainbow tree of eternal gay life, some call it the Kabbalah or the tree of life, that is the fourth initiation for your afterlife, for how you're going to have to deal with your afterlife experience. But while on Earth and alive on Geb, you have these four quartets from the ram to the beetle of Cancer, quartet 1, from the lion of Leo to the scorpion of Scorpio, quartet 2, and from the archer of Sagittarius to the fish of Pisces is the fourth quartet. So the first rites of passage, the second quartet rites of passage, and the third quartet rites of passage. So in order to understand the rites of passage, you have to know the anatomy of the human spirit. This first quartet, from the ram to the beetle, is called your Ka. Your Ka, your inner child. From the lion to the scorpion is called your Ab, your inner adult. From the archer Sagittarius to the fish of Pisces, these four signs are guardians of your inner divinity. So you are part child, part adult, and part divine, or part God, what we call Neteru. The ram contains also your physical body, which is called your Kat. So hiding in this first quartet of the inner child is the first phase of being a child, which is having a little baby, a little tiny body, an actual physical form. So from here to here is when you are initiated into being a child. You're allowed to be a child. And we have these as developmental stages in childhood. It's a childhood developmental stage paradigm. From 0 to about 18 months, the parents have to make sure the RAM functions are operative. What's called healthy narcissism. The child's all about me. I'm wet, I'm hungry, I got poopy diapers, I want to be burped, I want to be cuddled, me, 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 me. Then from around 18 months to about 3, the bull happens. The bull principle must be established in the child. It's attachment, where the child begins to have their favorite teddy bear, their favorite toy. This is my room, these are my clothes, don't take it. They become attached to things. So the child must have the ability to, we must allow the children at this age to attach to things and to have a feeling of security and stability. So a family must not move. It's not wise to change homes, for example, during this 18-month to 3-year-old phase, because it deranges the bull principle of attachment, object attachment, security instinct. The child needs stability, one home, one house, one room, one school, one set of friends, one teddy bear, you see? And that allows a child to establish healthy sense of security, stability, and material wealth in the world. If between the ages of 18 months and 3 years old, the child, you keep taking their toys, they keep moving, they don't have any kind of stability, their own little room, their own little play area, the child develops disorders later on in life. This failure of feeding the bull principle of the stars of Taurus in the child will show up later on as what's called borderline personality disorders, where the child will, for example, attach emotionally to a person really quickly. When they're at dating age or marrying age, they will meet someone and in like 10 hours they will be attached to that person. I love you, I want to marry you. That comes from a destabilization between the ages of 18 months and 3 years old. The movie Fatal Attraction, Glenn Close's character is a perfect psychological model of this disorder gone awry, gone to its nth degree. She was a definite borderline personality disorder person. So then we have from ages 3 to about 6. Here's the twins of Gemini. This is the information age within the child, where they're asking a lot of questions. Why, mommy? Why, daddy? Why this? Why that? It never stops asking why. At that stage, the parent who's been initiated by the gay shamans knows this is the age of what we call the talker, what's called Apwat, the jackal, or the baboon god, Awon. This is the monkey business phase, where the children are into all kinds of stuff. They're becoming strong in motor function and dexterity. So they're writing on walls and pulling out the pots and uh, eating dirt and under the cabinets. They're very curious and inquisitive, like a little monkey. Very normal for this age. And they want to know everything because they start talking at this age, asking questions and trying to develop their communication skills and information skills. They often start school at this age. So a lot of learning, the Gemini features really come to the fore. And the parent must answer every question. This is the age where you do not say, stop asking mommy questions. You talk too much. Don't ever say that at this developmental phase. Because this is the time in which the patterns of learning, communication, the courage to investigate and to ask questions in life are coming into the fore. So the parent needs to let the child ask as many questions as they want, because that's part of your job as a parent, is to help your child develop towards divinity. If you fail in doing this, if you say stop talking, you talk too much, why are you always asking questions, I'm trying to watch my soaps and my stories, and if you do that, if you shut them down, you create the foundation for ADD, where the child becomes hyperstimulated, hyperactive. Hyperactivity will happen later on. And they become chatterboxes, busybodies, because they're trying to go back to their childhood when they should have been allowed to ask questions, and they're dragging that undevelopment of this sign into adulthood. So they go meet someone at a date, they start talking, chatter, spilling all their business and gossiping, and all these features start coming into adulthood. So the parents must go through initiation, and they must learn. You must honor the god Apwat right now. Don't anger him. Let the child talk. Let the monkey play. Let him be silly. Just guide him, keep him safe, and answer his questions so he learns it's okay to question things in life. It's okay to learn. Then we go from about 6 years old. Let's see, we said from 3 to 6. This is about the age from, let's say, 6 to about 12. This is a large cycle of life. The beetle of Cancer. This is the nurturing phase. This is the connection phase, the family bonding phase. It's at this age that we really start forming heartfelt connections with people. It's when you really find your best friend in school, and you really feel it's important that you are accepted. This is the age of acceptance or rejection. Here we start developing our emotional bonding brain centers, and we start really feeling the need to be accepted by the family, by our friends, by our school peers, by our teachers. We begin to feel the power of being part of the group or being alienated from the group, being cut off. So this is the age of emotional bonds. And so it's very important the parents nurture a lot of emotional connection with the child, to let them have their emotions, but to guide them and to help them to shape what their emotions are trying to say to them, what their anger, because they're still young, their brains aren't developed for reason, so they're just reactive. And the parent has to learn how to allow the child to express their emotionality, but then to begin to temper it so the child can be functional with all those emotions in a group, in a school, with their friends. So you have to say thank you and please and may I, and you have to share, and you have to think of other people's feelings, and how would you like it if someone did that to you. These are the kinds of things the parent must now teach the child. If this has failed, and the parents are cold and aloof and distant and non-responsive to the child's emotional pleas, and if they're bullied in school and that's allowed to continue, or they're shut down emotionally through a parent that's absent because of alcoholism or drugs or just being a jerk, then the child will lay the foundation of a disorder called histrionic disorder or avoidance personality disorder. Histrionic disorder means you're just an emotional, overreactive person. You're just, oh my goodness, everything's drama, drama, drama. This is why many in the gay community find gay drag camp, where it's very overly dramatic, very over the top. A lot of that affinity in our community for this kind of mommy dearest, over the top drag camp drama, like in RuPaul's Drag Race or RuPaul's Untucked show, where all that drama comes on. It's very theatrical. It's very much over the cup here, spilling over. That comes from this age, between around 3 and 12, when we were not allowed as gay men, gay boys I should say, to express our gay affections, our gay way of being emotional, which is far more integrated. It's testicular and phallic, it's soft and hard. It's not butch and macho. It's got a lot of soft curves to it. And we were not allowed, without absolute fear of rejection and punishment, we were not allowed to express that gay way of being emotional. So we've lost this phase, this ascendancy phase, developmental phase, and so we look for it as adults. Histrionic disorder means you become a drama queen, basically. And avoidance personality disorder means you want to engage people, you want to be emotionally engaged, you want to make emotional bonds, but then you run away, like a wallflower who wants to dance but stays on the wall. So you become overly dramatic, called histrionic, which is where the word hysterical comes from, hysterical. Or you become, I want to play but I'm afraid, so you stay a wallflower. You kind of freeze up emotionally. And a sign of this is you have very stiff body movements, there's no fluidity, no one can read your feelings, you're kind of cold and ice-like. These are all signatures to a golden beetle shaman that you had a failure of development from your parents and culture between about 6 and 12. I'm sorry, 9 and 12. So you're seeing that there is an order to growth, that life puts you through stages of development, of maturity. And there are rules, there are laws for each stage. This first one, by the way, I didn't mention about the RAM, which is when you are self-absorbed, a kind of narcissistic phase. If the baby cries, poopies, has to be burped, is hungry, the parent must respond quickly. Do not delay, because the Ram of Aries, what we call Mahuz, does not like to wait. He's impatient. So imagine the child was there with wet pampers, poopy pampers, hungry, crying, and the parent delays or may not even respond whatsoever. the child learns my needs shall never be met. They learn I have to suffer and I'm all by myself. I'm independent. One feature of the realm of Aries is an independent behavior pattern. But this is negative. They fear I'm all by myself. If I have a problem, no one's there to help me. That wound was fomented during birth to about 18 months. If your child is screaming, go immediately. If the child is hungry, feed immediately. If the child is wet, feed immediately. Change Pampers immediately. You must be continuously focused on not yourself, but on the child at all times. If this is failed, if the parent does not understand that the god Mahus is growing in the child between 0 and 18 months, if they fail Mahus, they set the foundation for what's called psychopathic disorders, antisocial disorders, where the child will then grow up to become more like a bully, which is a sign of the realm of Aries. The child cuts off from emotion. He will hurt people and have no remorse, no guilt, no conscience at all. It's creepy. They will hurt people and say, well, they deserved it. What you're hearing is their little inner infant saying, well, I was left wet for 3 hours. I must deserve this. I must deserve this. I must be punished. I'm probably being punished. That's how a child will use their burgeoning brain. So if I was punished, then you should be punished. So I should rob you and not care about your feelings, what I'm doing to you psychologically and emotionally. Or I should become a cheater with my gay partner and just cheat on that person and not give a crap what the person thinks that I'm with, not feel what they're feeling. Those are all antisocial features. But those can be analyzed by going back to around the age of 0, birth basically, to 18 months. Were you left hanging when you were wet, poopied, pampered, hungry, burping, needing a hug? Were you left by yourself in a house and no one hears your cries? I mean, that's really very heartbreaking. So at that age, the gay shaman coaches the parents and says, listen, you don't exist right now as a parent. Imagine you don't exist and all that exists is this child. And if the child has a need, be quick, because the ram of Aries, Mahus, he must react quickly. Because to the child, it's an emergency. I'm wet. I'm hungry. This is life and death to the child's being. That's why the ram of Aries, Mahus, is the god of crisis. He's the one that comes at a crisis. He handles it. Fire or a murder or an earthquake. He's there on the scene. So you have to know what God, what divine principle is ascending in the psychological development of the gay child. And the parent must have been taught this. See, this is the manual for parenting. You see, the white culture says there's no manual on how to raise kids. You know, by my second child, I figured it out. My third child, I got a clue. Well, that means you just ruined the first child. It's such a disgusting statement to me to even say that. It's the arrogance of the white culture. Because that's true for white people and their culture from time immemorial. But the Africans had a map, had a manual, had a textbook and a workbook. And you're looking at it, the zodiac sign. These zodiac signs here. So, now we're at 12 years old. Now you're entering puberty. The next great quartet begins. Now the inner adult forces start to rise up. And that's called the Ab phase. Ab. This is the Kat and the Ka. This is the Ab, the inner adult, the inner champion. And I will go quicker through these phases. I will do another video perhaps on more details of these. But the lion, this phase of the line of Leo is the most important phase. This is owned by the sun, Ra himself. And the sun is not a planet, it's a star. So we can't lump the sun with all the other planets because it's a completely different phenomenon. It is the sun. It is the life source and the life force on this earth, for us on earth here. So here you have to start shining. The sun shines through fusion. In other words, the sun makes its own light. No other body in the solar system is self-luminous. This is key to initiation. At this phase, now you're about 13 years old, a young gay child at 13 years old. You learn how to develop your life force, how to become self-luminous, to rely upon yourself more, to go within to your own internal light, your own internal resources, to help you bring energy to the adult responsibilities. So this little sliver here between Cancer and Leo is the cutoff point from this is the child and here's the adult coming. They must be severed, and you must leave the child over here and awaken the adult on this side of the divide here. That's called rites of passage. And if you fail each of these stages, other disorders kick on. So here, the higher brain functions begin to operate, and independence, reason, self-determination, a sense of personal freedom, all of these things must now be developed. And these signs are called the social signs, where you have to learn that you can't just do what you want and say what you want and react the way you want. You can't be an Atlanta housewife, where you just say what you want and your mouth just spills over. You have to control yourself. You have to learn. You are in a society. You are with other people who also have feelings. And you have to be mindful and control your emotions. Here you're really taught how to manage emotions and keep the animal in check. This is the inner animal or inner child, the inner human or inner adult, the second quartet, and the inner master, the inner sage, the third quartet. So you go through these phases of reason controlling your life, whereas when you were a child, emotions controlled your life. The word emotions equals animal. The word reason equals human. So these are the four rational phases, where here you learn the power of logic and reason and rational thinking. At the wheat, you learn how to analyze yourself rationally and objectively and to fix your childhood issues. The scales of Libra, or we call Ahimakai, of relationships, here you learn how what I call down and around psychology, or what they call objects relations theory, operates in relationships as a methodology of balancing out your childhood issues. In other words, it's a very long, round way of saying, when you are attracted to someone that you want to bond with, and when you want to create that bond, old issues start coming up quickly between you and your gay partner. Old habits start trying to reestablish themselves. And here you have to understand the dynamics of bonding with people, of relationships, and the psychology of how you are reacting to your mate. Oftentimes your reactions come from inner child wounds between you, your parents, your siblings, and your first early friends. And we often replay those wounds out with the person we are involved with intimately. And the Scorpion here says, now we have to dig into the responsibility you have, not only of fixing yourself, managing a proper relationship in your adult life as an adult, but to now look into your ancestral ways, the ancestral bad habits that you are also continuing. And here you have to use voodoo and occult forces to commune with your ancestors in the Scorpion age phase to see, where are my funny ways coming from? Who in the lineage, way back how many generations, had this way? And you have to commune with the ancestors that had the same kind of bad habits you have, or the same talents you have. You must nourish those ancestors up-level them, uplift them to help heal your relationships in life. Then you have the higher brain functions here of the inner master, the inner sage, starting with the Archer Sagittarius, which is now, you see here when you were an inner child of the inner animal phase, emotions ruled you. Here, reason rules you as the inner adult in the second quartet. You're very rational, objective. At the third quartet, what rules you is divine law, oracles. The divine sciences rule you, what we call Ma'a or Ma'ati. This whole quadrant, its nature, its natural state is Ma'ati, the divine law, what some call the Tao or Dharma. We call Ma'ati, the divine laws. And so here you live by divine law automatically. It's just the way you live. Here you live by wisdom from the oracles, the great oracles. Here you live by calendars, divine calendars, transits, and astrology charts. Here you live by the magic of communing with the Creator. This is oneness with the Creator, therefore it's called brotherhood or humanitarianism. You live as a humanitarian, just automatically. And here you live as a person of peace. So we have oracular wisdom, sky science, humanitarianism, peace. You went from a narcissistic, crying little animal, basically, just pooping and eating and pooping and eating, the most primitive of functions, all the way around to here, master of eternal peace on earth and within yourself. So you have to go through the initiation. It's not a choice. The same way you can't choose to stay an infant, nature is going to force you to become a child, then a young adult, then an elder, then it's going to make sure you go into the afterlife. You can't control this. It's nature's way. And it's also shown here in the pyramid. This may be a bit tiny, but we have 3 basic chambers, one down here called the lower chamber, the middle chamber, and the upper chamber. The lower chamber is the first quartet, the chamber of beasts and the inner child. The middle chamber, falsely called the Queen's chamber, is the second quartet, the chamber of reason and the use of spiritual techniques to help you control yourself. And then the upper chamber, called the King's chamber, corresponds to these 4 in this third quartet. So this pyramid is the exact same thing, just a different angle as this wheel. The first quartet is the lower chamber of beasts. The second quartet is the middle chamber of humans. The third quartet, is the upper chamber of masters. So you want to climb out of the animal way, become humane, and then become a gay god on earth. This image here shows gay men uniting as a brotherhood, as one. And these are gay men that I'm going to say in this image, I'm going to give it meaning that's relevant to this conversation, of gay men who have united in initiation. They are brothers in initiation. What has become bastardized in the heterosexual world as fraternity. The fraternity concept and the sorority concepts are actually very pathetic, crazy versions of the great initiatic systems of Africa. Because they got all their things from the Masons, who got it from Kemet, Egypt, and the Rosicrucians got all that from Africa. So these are gay men who have passed rites of passage, are no longer man-children. They know their developmental stages, their sequence, and the ages at which each phase must come to ascendancy and development. And they are a brotherhood uniting their hands. And I place this eye, which represents the brain structures. Here you have your medulla oblongata, your lower brain here, and you have your pons here and your brain stem and your pineal pituitary in here. This is your corpus callosum. In other words, this eye represents the higher brain functions, that you have awakened the higher functions of these other quartets. And they promise with their hand over this eye to protect the gay men's rites of passage, to help young gay boys to have a chance for the more mature gay men to help initiate them into their higher brain functions, their higher levels of spirit. And that the brotherhood, the men here, the initiated men, will keep an eye on the young gay boys to make sure they are initiated, they go through rites of passage. And this image here shows the brain, which is the target of rites of passage. So here you have this brain called your reptilian complex, shown as a reptile. Then you have what's called your mammal complex, mammalian complex here, which is shown as a mammal. And then you have shown here your left brain, which is a baboonish creature. It's the left brain of separation, tricks, lies, games, cunning, deceit, and division. And here we have what's called your dolphin brain, which is your frontal cortex. And the dolphin is a very intelligent animal. It's a very smart animal. It can actually reason. So it's shown as this front brain is where the reasoning function happens in the frontal lobe. Also, dolphins are masters at breathing. They can hold their breath and come back up. So this brain begins to really speak to what's called pranayama yoga, swara yoga, or breathing techniques for meditation. And so, initiation is to take you out of your inner reptile, which is your body language, primitive kind of brain, which is, ooh, you're hot and sexy. Ooh, you look so good. You look at the physicality of a person, and it turns you on. That's a reptile response. Reptiles do courting rituals. They do anger gestures. They're body language creatures. They can't talk, they can't really communicate besides body language. So when you respond to the beautiful bodies of these men, beautiful as they are, it's your inner reptile that's getting turned on. It's okay to have the reptile, but he must not rule you. Reason must rule, not emotion. Children let their emotions rule. Adults let reason rule. Then you have the mammalian brain, which is a very emotional brain, which you're seeing here in this little baby, this cute little baby here, who's whining. He's not very happy. What you're seeing here is his mammal brain controlling his behavior. That's normal for children, not for adults. Then you have the monkey mind, which is your cunning, sneaky, tricky, word gaming, left brain ways. And this dolphin would be more this arc of the adult, where you have reason, because as I mentioned, dolphins are very smart animals, so they're thinkers. So here thinking rules you. What's not shown in this image is in the middle between this monkey here and this possum creature are your higher brain functions shown here. Take this eye and put it in the middle. That's your pineal, pituitary, thalamus, corpus callosum structures. They are this brain, the brain of the divine in you. This is the divine brain, particularly the pupil aspects of it and this brow. So we end by reminding you of what initiation rites of passage is targeted towards. This monster here, who's part some kind of dragon creature here and part beast here. This beast dragon represents the same beast reptile, a dragon's reptile kind of serpent creature. This is your animal mind. Your animal mind, your anger, your aggression, your fear, your greed, your violence. This is your lower brain function here, the reptile and the mammal brain, the beast and the serpent within. This is shown as in certain religions as the serpent. Yes, all the movies you see with the thing in the basement, notice this is in the lower part of the brain, the basement of your brain, the basement of your evolution. When you see movies about The Walking Dead or monsters or ghouls, all it's saying is that's symbolic of this lower brain, who's just a wild animal, doesn't have any reason. Then we have the little baby crying here, which is, as I said before, your mammal brain showing. And then we have Amun-Ra, who controls really all of these, but in particular these four. Amun-Ra uses the powers of the upper brain here, of wisdom, astrology, humanitarianism, and peace, to tame the other two quartets, the 8 other signs. This is enlightened mind directing energy of the spirit. So that this is the one who is to master and control and tame everything in this wheel. He is the one that will show you how to go from this lower chamber of beasts through human consciousness to divine consciousness. And the final point on all this, it is impossible to go from here to here to here, or from this first quartet to this second quartet to this third quartet, or from this brain, reptile brain, to the mammal brain, to the human logical brain, to the frontal lobe brain. You cannot jump brains, you cannot jump pyramid chambers, you cannot jump quartets without initiation. It requires human intervention. Nature will not awaken those brains properly by itself. It stops at around puberty. At puberty, social institutions must now intervene to continue the humanization and divinization process. You have to have schooling in these things. You have to have training. So don't blame yourselves. Blame the failed social system that did not have a divine mandala of the human spirit and its developmental needs and stages that would have taught you how to not bring your inner child issues and scars into adult reality. So the name of the game, to go from this to this and then to this. This is the purpose of the golden beetle. It's its design function. So may all gay men grow up becoming full and integrated gay people, where all parts of their spirit are fed. Many gay men are starving emotionally, starving psychologically, starving spiritually. And the function of a king is to feed his people. It's his only purpose, is to feed his people. But he must feed their bodies, their emotions, their minds, and their spirits. And so we offer this to you as food for thought for now. To realize you can heal yourself. That list you made can be fixed if you allow Amun-Ra here, the higher quartet here, your higher brain functions of your pituitary pineal system, this eye here, if you allow them to wake up and spread their light upon the darkness of the issues you wrote down. So, review this video, this podcast. Give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up so much. Understand, you were given the short end of a stick. You were not given the gay initiations of Africa. And what whites have to learn, they're not good at everything. They're good at making electronic things. Tools and weapons are their speciality. But when it comes to the affairs of the spirit, do not ask the white cultures. Ask the peoples of color who've done all that work on the spirit. Each race has their gift. And it's time for the African, in particular, the gay African understanding of psychology and developmental sequence to help people stop being this beast on the 5 o'clock news: murder, death, betrayal, treachery, lying, or being this in your relationships. When you don't get your way, you start whining and crying and pounding your fists and having tantrums and acting out and being irrational, to being this: a god, a fully self-actualized human being. This was the agenda of all the psychology systems of Maslow and Freud and Jung, and all of these systems were trying to create a mandala, a map of how people should grow psychologically. But it's been here for thousands of years in Africa. And so we bring it back, and gay people, there aren't many self-help programs that really talk to us, that really specialize in our needs. Definitely there are none where there are black gay self-help programs. When you go to all these magazines, of New Age magazines and astrology conferences and self-help conferences, it's very white. You see very few black people, because the way they approach it suits white people. This is the first time we're having a true self-help system geared for people of color in particular. It's for all people, but it's going to definitely have the flavor of black folk and African. So this system is to help those people in particular to have a safe place that is tailor fit for their ancestry and their nature, for their soul and their flavor, to get self-help. So, may this grow. May you spread this video to other gay people, because we have to begin this scene. This scene must happen. The brotherhood, initiated gay men through rites of passage, who unite as one brotherhood to help each other, help our community, and help this planet. The age of Aquarius, called Hapi, the androgen of Kemet, the Nile god. The age of Aquarius is now, and this is what it will look like. We thank our gay ancestors that brought this information to me in meditation, and I thank all the gay Neteru, all the gay gods of Black Kemet, Nile Valley, for giving this information as well. Long live the gay ancestors of the Nile Valley. Long live the gay gods. Long live my beloved gay community. Dwawen Hotepu.